Hey guys! Today we're diving into another truly horrifying case. If you want to support my channel, make sure to subscribe and stay active. It really helps me out. I'd be super grateful for that. Let's get started. Why do some people take the lives of others who have never personally wronged them? This isn't about those with disturbing compulsions who commit such acts for their own gratification, but rather about those who do it for personal gain. Taking a life, or orchestrating such an act, to secure financial benefits, and then continuing to live comfortably, funded by money obtained in the most horrifying way. And what's even more shocking is that some are willing to betray even their own family members for financial profit. The case of Berenice Alanis Morales shook Mexico a few years ago, becoming a chilling example of unchecked greed and moral corruption. This woman had only one true passion: money, and she was willing to cross any line to get more of it, no matter the cost. Yet, despite overwhelming suspicions surrounding her, she managed to slip through the grasp of justice. And this wasn't just luck. She had powerful allies. Corrupt officials and law enforcement officers, bought and paid for, ensured she walked free. Jacinto Rafael Quesada Trejo was born on November 17, 1968, in the sizable Mexican city of Pachuca de Soto. He was the youngest child in a modest, middle-class family. Though his parents led simple lives, they did everything they could to provide their children with a quality education, ensuring they had every opportunity to achieve success and reach their full potential. From an early age, Jacinto displayed remarkable intelligence. He excelled in school, devoured books, and had an insatiable thirst for knowledge. As a teenager, he developed a keen interest in business, demonstrating a sharp entrepreneurial mindset. After graduating high school, he earned his way into the prestigious Metropolitan Autonomous University in Mexico City, where he studied economics and business management. Jacinto worked tirelessly and soon launched his own business, which quickly flourished. He had an instinct for smart investments and knew how to grow his wealth strategically. Over time, he explored various industries but never took unnecessary risks. His ventures in real estate were particularly lucrative. He purchased properties throughout Mexico City, which he would either rent out, renovate, or resell at a profit. Within a few years, Jacinto became one of the most successful young entrepreneurs in Mexico City. A decade later, he had built a thriving business empire. By the early 2000s, he had become a millionaire, with his wealth estimated at several tens of millions of dollars, and it was only continuing to grow. In 1993, Jacinto married Patricia Arellano, the woman he had loved since his university days. The couple hosted an extravagant wedding and moved into a luxurious mansion in one of Mexico City's most exclusive neighborhoods. A year later, their daughter Patricia was born, and in 1995, they welcomed their son, Jacinto Jr. Despite his demanding schedule, Jacinto always made time for his family. He attended his children's school performances and sporting events, and frequently took them on vacations to top resorts and amusement parks. He wanted to give them the best of everything, while also ensuring they remained grounded. It was important to him that his daughter and son received a strong education and were prepared to take over his business one day. He made sure they didn't grow up spoiled, idle, or careless with the fortune he had built. The Quesada family was well known and respected in their community, and their large household employed several dozen staff members. Working for them was considered a great opportunity, as they were known to be kind and generous employers. In 2003, Jacinto and Patricia hired a new housekeeper, an 18-year-old young woman named Berenice. At first glance, she appeared modest and well-mannered. However, in time, she would turn their lives upside down and ultimately shatter everything they had built. Berenice Alanis Morales was born on July 13, 1985, in a struggling neighborhood on the outskirts of Mexico City. She grew up in a large, deeply religious family that faced financial hardship. Her parents raised their many children with strict discipline, demanding absolute obedience. Even the smallest mistakes were met with severe consequences. From a young age, Berenice had a rebellious nature. She constantly challenged the strict household rules and sought independence from her parents. The moment she turned 18, she took a job as a housekeeper for the Casada family, moved into their mansion, and almost completely severed ties with her relatives. Berenice was strikingly attractive, with a flawless figure, and she knew exactly how to use her looks to get what she wanted. It's difficult to say whether she ever truly loved Jacinto or if she had her eyes on his wealth from the start, but one thing was clear: she wasted no time making her move. She played her part masterfully, exuding charm while maintaining an air of innocence and restraint. Jacinto, despite being a married man 17 years her senior and a father of 2, quickly fell under her spell. Just a month after starting her job, Berenice seduced him, completely capturing his attention. Ironically, Patricia, Jacinto's wife, had welcomed Berenice into their home with kindness. She even gave her gifts, and the two developed what seemed like a friendly bond. But behind Patricia's back, in the very house she had built with her husband, Berenice was carrying on a secret affair. She had big plans for her future and had already started envisioning herself as the owner of that luxurious estate. Affairs with household staff often fizzle out without major consequences, but not this time. Less than a year later, Jacinto made a shocking decision. He wanted a divorce so he could marry his much younger mistress. His family was stunned. Patricia felt utterly betrayed and humiliated. Their son and daughter were confused, and Jacinto's parents immediately saw Berenice for what she was, a woman with her sights set on financial security. No amount of reasoning could sway the businessman, who was blinded by his emotions. He left the wife he had been with for over a decade and, in 2004, legally married the woman who would become the most fateful figure in his life. Despite the painful split, he and Patricia reached a peaceful agreement regarding their children's care, deciding to co-parent and remain involved in their lives. A year later, Patricia moved on as well. She remarried, welcomed 2 more children in her new marriage, and found happiness again. Her older son and daughter spent most of their time at their father's home to maintain stability and continue attending the same school. Being so young, they didn't harbor resentment toward Berenice, and over time they even grew accustomed to her presence. As soon as Berenice legally became Jacinto's wife, she gained unrestricted access to his finances and immediately began spending lavishly. She spared no expense. Her wardrobe consisted only of high-end designer brands. She used exclusively luxury cosmetics, drove a Ferrari Enzo gifted to her by her husband, and collected custom jewelry from top fashion houses. Now the lady of the Quesada household, Morales adopted an arrogant and domineering attitude, especially toward the household staff, including those she had once been friendly with. She made it clear to everyone that their job security, salaries, and overall treatment depended entirely on her. She demanded absolute obedience and expected to be treated not just as the boss, but as royalty. Berenice had no interest in work or responsibility. Her life became one long celebration. She spent her days indulging in high-end shopping sprees, attending exclusive social events, and hosting extravagant parties. She genuinely believed she had ascended into high society and sought to surround herself only with wealthy and influential people. She completely severed ties with her old friends and distanced herself from her family. On top of that, she underwent a series of cosmetic procedures, drastically altering her face and body. She sought out elite surgeons and requested a transformation that would make her resemble a Hollywood starlet. Over a relatively short period, she went under the knife multiple times, changing her appearance beyond recognition. Despite Jacinto's family disapproving of his new wife and refusing to accept her, the first few years of their marriage were relatively calm. He was deeply infatuated and made it his mission to keep her happy. Focused on his business, he paid little attention to how she spent her days. He granted her full financial freedom, giving her access to his accounts, and she took full advantage, spending recklessly for her own pleasure. Morales traveled the world and often brought along her friends, covering their expenses with her husband's credit cards. She wanted to make it clear to everyone that she could spend as much as she wanted on whatever she desired, without answering to anyone. And it worked. Her spending habits only grew more extravagant over time. By the time she married Jacinto, he was nearly twice her age, and from the very beginning, she saw him as little more than an older man, providing her with financial security. Before long, she began pursuing affairs with younger men, though at first she was careful to keep her private escapades hidden from her wealthy and powerful husband. She maintained the image of a devoted wife, and for a while she played the role flawlessly. Jacinto gradually introduced his son and daughter to the family business from an early age, ensuring they wouldn't just inherit his empire, but also learn how to expand it successfully. After graduating high school, both enrolled in a prestigious university to study law while simultaneously working for their father's company to gain hands-on experience. Patricia focused on managing real estate assets, while Jacinto Jr., who had a strong passion for soccer, explored new opportunities in sports management. To support his son's ambitions, Jacinto purchased a large sports complex outside the city and established a youth soccer club called Muscle Factory. The facility included administrative offices on the lower floors, while the upper level was converted into a residential space for family members when they visited. Berenice often visited the club as well, sometimes staying for days at a time, but not because she had suddenly taken an interest in her husband's ventures. Instead, she had set her sights on an attractive young coach who soon became her secret lover. The two carried on their affair right there in the residential quarters, confident that no one would ever expose them. When Jacinto Jr. turned 18, his stepmother's attention shifted toward him in a way that raised eyebrows. She was 10 years older, strikingly attractive, and carried herself with a bold confidence that the young man found hard to resist. Eventually, he gave in, and their relationship turned into a long-term affair. Over time, Berenice became so emboldened by her sense of power and impunity that she barely made an effort to conceal what was happening. Rumors spread quickly. The household staff whispered about the inappropriate relationship, exchanging knowing glances, but no one dared to inform Jacinto. Whether out of distraction or willful ignorance, the businessman remained oblivious, or perhaps he simply refused to acknowledge the truth. He was still deeply infatuated with his wife and terrified of losing her. But when the truth finally came to light and could no longer be denied, an explosive scandal erupted. Jacinto felt betrayed, humiliated, and utterly disgraced. However, despite the gravity of the situation, he couldn't bring himself to leave his wife. In an attempt to keep his family intact, he chose to forgive her and to maintain peace with his son. After Berenice's infidelities were exposed, her marriage to Jacinto was hanging by a thread. Still, he hesitated to take decisive action. For months, everything remained at a standstill, as if everyone was waiting for the situation to resolve itself. They continued living under the same roof, pretending nothing had happened. Then, in March 2019, something chilling occurred. While cleaning the master bedroom, one of the housekeepers stumbled upon a hidden bundle tucked away in a secluded spot. Curiosity got the best of her, and when she opened it, she was horrified by what she found. Inside were wax dolls with strands of human hair attached, along with needles, dried leaves, and photographs of Jacinto's heirs. Everything about the discovery resembled a setup for a voodoo ritual. The housekeeper immediately suspected that someone was attempting to harm Jacinto's son and daughter through dark practices. Wasting no time, she informed Jacinto Sr., and he instantly realized who was behind it. Yet, even after this shocking revelation, he still couldn't bring himself to file for divorce. However, this time, Berenice had crossed a line. She had targeted the most precious part of Jacinto's life, his family. He couldn't let it go unpunished. Another heated confrontation erupted, but this time, the businessman took decisive action. He met with his attorneys and rewrote his will, completely cutting his wife out of it. From that moment on, Berenice had no legal claim to his estate, businesses, stocks, or assets. Despite this, she remained his legal spouse, continued living in his home, and carried on her lavish lifestyle at his expense. But now she fully understood that if something were to happen to her husband, his heirs would have the power to cast her out with nothing. That was not an option she was willing to accept. So she decided to take matters into her own hands. For a couple of weeks, Morales kept a low profile, carefully plotting her next move. She apologized to her husband, insisted she regretted her mistakes, and claimed she wanted to make things right. She convinced Jacinto that they needed to meet with his son and daughter to have an honest discussion and settle their differences. To ensure privacy, she suggested holding the meeting at their apartment inside the family's private sports complex, away from unwanted interruptions. Jacinto believed her. He saw no reason to be suspicious and agreed to the plan. He spoke with his son and daughter, inviting them to the meeting in hopes of restoring harmony. Patricia found the chosen location unusual, but didn't argue with her father. The meeting was scheduled for the evening of April 4th. Everyone arrived on time, except for Berenice, who was running late for reasons unknown. Around 6 p.m., Jacinto looked out the window and saw his wife's car pulling up to the entrance. However, she didn't head inside right away. Instead, she approached the security guard stationed at the front and asked him to accompany her to the gym. She claimed she had noticed some issues that required immediate attention. While this was outside the guard's usual duties, he didn't argue with the boss's wife and followed her, leaving his post, something he had never done before. Once inside the gym, Morales pointed out supposed malfunctions in the sound system, insisting that the speakers weren't working properly and needed to be replaced. She turned up the volume, creating loud distortion and noise. Then she gestured for the guard to stand in a specific spot, telling him it was necessary to assess the sound quality. The man was confused and uncertain about what she expected from him, but she made it clear he was not to leave the room. At one point, Berenice abruptly turned off the sound system, claiming that a professional technician would be needed to fix the issue. Without another word, she walked out of the gym, got into her car, and drove away. The security guard returned to his post, but after some time, he noticed that Jacinto and his son and daughter had not left the apartment, despite having no plans to stay overnight. Growing concerned, he tried calling, but no one answered. That's when he decided to go upstairs and check if everything was all right. The moment he stepped out of the elevator, he sensed something was wrong. The apartment door was wide open, and the first room was in complete disarray, showing clear signs of a struggle. When he entered the living room, he was met with a horrifying sight. Jacinto and his children were lying lifeless on the floor, surrounded by a large pool of blood. Terrified, the guard immediately called for emergency services. Despite their quick arrival, nothing could be done. Both men had succumbed to their injuries before help arrived. Patricia still had a faint pulse, and she was rushed to the nearest hospital. Tragically, she didn't survive the trip due to severe blood loss. An autopsy later confirmed that all 3 victims had been fatally shot with a high-caliber handgun. The men had been targeted at close range, while Patricia had seemingly tried to escape but was unable to get away. Since nothing had been stolen from the scene, investigators quickly determined that this was not a random attack, but a targeted act against the family. From the outset, multiple theories were considered. Given the Quesada family's wealth and influence in various business sectors, one logical assumption was that they had powerful enemies. It was possible that Jacinto and his children had been eliminated by business rivals or had become entangled in a dangerous conflict. Another theory suggested that they might have been involved in some undisclosed dealings, possibly connected to illicit activities, which ultimately led to their demise. Had any of these theories been true, it would have made sense that Berenice was left unharmed. After all, she had no role in the family's business, was not involved in any operations, and had recently been removed from Jacinto's will. However, Detectives quickly suspected that she was hiding something, and in fact, had the strongest motive of all. The only eyewitness to the crime was the security guard, and during his first interrogation, he immediately reported Berenice's unusual behavior. He recounted her odd request, the blaring music, and how she had left without even speaking to the family, despite supposedly arranging the meeting for that purpose. Moreover, her reaction to the incident raised even more red flags. While she attempted to appear distraught during questioning, her display of grief was far from convincing. Investigators also examined security footage from the building's entrance, expecting to identify the perpetrator. However, they discovered that someone had deliberately repositioned the camera so that it only captured the blank wall opposite the entrance. This critical detail reinforced the belief that the crime had been premeditated and carefully orchestrated. One of the neighbors later informed investigators that on the night of the crime, he had spotted a mysterious biker from his window. The man pulled up directly in front of the building where the attack took place, quickly went inside, and emerged just minutes later before speeding off on his motorcycle. According to the witness, the suspect was a tall, well-built man, around 35 years old, with a beard and a baseball cap. Due to the distance and fading daylight, the neighbor couldn't make out any more details. The very next day, Berenice wasted no time initiating the process of claiming her late husband's estate. Despite being recently widowed, she showed no interest in arranging memorial services or notifying relatives. Instead, she spent her time consulting lawyers, focused solely on securing her financial future. Although Jacinto had removed Morales from his will, she was still his legal wife. And now, with no other heirs left, she could once again stake a claim to all of his real estate, businesses, and bank accounts. This raised serious suspicions, as it provided a strong motive for orchestrating such a brutal crime. Meanwhile, Berenice continued her extravagant lifestyle. She attended social events and parties and even started making public appearances with her new partner, a fitness trainer who worked at the very sports club owned by her late husband. Investigators were convinced that this man had been her accomplice, possibly even the one who carried out the crime. However, with no concrete evidence and a witness who couldn't provide a positive identification, authorities had no case strong enough to prosecute him. Soon, neighbors living near the Quesada estate noticed Berenice removing valuables from the house, including antique furniture and artwork. Concerned by what they were witnessing, they alerted Jacinto's relatives, who immediately contacted law enforcement, directly accusing the widow of arranging the crime for financial gain. 4 days after the tragic incident, Morales was arrested at the crime scene itself while attempting to lease out the sports complex and office building. She had even gone so far as to remove the police tape to give a tour of the property to potential tenants. But just 2 days later, in a shocking turn of events, Berenice was released by order of the chief prosecutor, Oscar Tomas Vasquez. He cited procedural violations during the arrest and the absence of an official warrant. Most people believed she had simply bought her way out of custody. Years later, in a separate case, Vasquez was removed from office and sentenced to prison on charges of corruption and abuse of power. While investigators scrambled to build a stronger case for her rearrest, they encountered a new obstacle. Morales' legal team began intimidating and threatening witnesses to prevent them from testifying. In one alarming incident, Jacinto Sr.'s personal assistant was nearly abducted outside the prosecutor's office on her way to provide evidence. Fortunately, security personnel intervened just in time, preventing the attack and ensuring the witness's safety. The investigation uncovered even more disturbing details. Berenice didn't just seduce her stepson, but allegedly supplied him with powerful substances, gradually making him dependent on them. She also manipulated him into signing documents that granted her financial control over certain assets and convinced him to transfer money into her accounts. Although Patricia and Jacinto Jr. had grown up with Morales as part of their lives, she never showed them any real affection. Without hesitation, she lured the young man into a toxic dependency, used him for financial gain, and ultimately eliminated both him and his sister to remove the primary heirs standing in her way. Berenice wasted no time liquidating her late husband's assets, despite having no legal claim to them. She forged documents, bribed the right people, and managed to sell 3 luxury vehicles from Jacinto's elite car collection. At the same time, she continued fighting for official inheritance rights, even filing a lawsuit to challenge the will. When authorities uncovered her fraudulent sales, a warrant was issued for her arrest on charges of financial misconduct. But before law enforcement could take action, she vanished without a trace. In the spring of 2020, investigators finally tracked her location. But once again, she slipped away as if someone had tipped her off in advance. She left the property just 5 minutes before the police arrived, and from that moment on, there were no confirmed sightings of her. There is strong reason to believe that Morales fled Mexico using falsified documents and is now living comfortably in another country under an assumed identity. Though she never officially claimed her late husband's fortune, she had access to a massive sum of cash stored in their home safe, which she took with her before disappearing. In addition, over the years, Berenice had amassed an extensive collection of high-end jewelry, including exclusive custom pieces. Add to that various luxury goods, valuable artwork, and at least 2 cars she managed to sell before fleeing, it's safe to say she wouldn't be struggling financially anytime soon. Thanks for watching, everyone. Your support means a lot to me, and you can help my channel grow by hitting that like button, dropping a comment, and sharing this video. Your engagement really makes a difference. See you soon.